816. K-Fire 550 and Guns in the 701. Gentlemen, how are you?
Pretty good.
Great morning. How about you?
Well, just ready for a weekend. And oh, wait a minute, it's radio. It's we're on the air every day's the same.
Labor of love, right?
That's right. Well, I tell people it's radio ranching, because if you're running a ranch, still got to feed things and clean things and stuff, right? Well,
yeah, very true. Very true.
Be.
I mean, we don't bother to clean the radio station. It's radio. Who's going to know? But I'm just
barely wear clothes, right?
I'm just kidding. We clean the radio station. I just don't clean my house because I'm never there. But that's a different story. But gee whiz, look at that. We're 2 seconds in and we're already going down the rabbit trail. But that's the story of my life too. So, back in the case of over homemade firearms, what's the thought process going on here?
Yeah, but first I'm going to just say something here.
Okay.
Here in the past week, we have 29 permitless carry states, meaning we got constitutional carry now. In 29 states, over half the country finally has restored our Second Amendment rights. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah.
Louisiana, I think, was the latest.
The heck's wrong with the other half?
Well, a lot of them are blue states and commies, so that's part of it. But we'll get
Don't
there.
sugarcoat it. Tell me how you really feel about it.
Yeah,
we can't say that on radio.
Okay, give me the G-rated version of how you really... The network... The TV network-friendly version of how you...
I don't know how to put that in words.
It's bananas. That's what it is. Okay.
There
sure.
we go. There we go.
I don't know what in the fruit they're doing.
Oh. Jamie and I used to do a really good job not slipping up, so, we want to start now.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
So anyway, we got every town for, as we always called it, gun confiscation. They're backing this lawsuit that's taking place in Michigan, which Michigan has some crazy laws. In fact, they just convicted 2 parents for their kids murdering that he did with a firearm that evidently they gave to him. But that's a whole other situation. But that's the kind of state Michigan is. They're going after JSD, and they joined the lawsuit supply. They basically, because they sell what they call a privately manufactured firearm, and you know how they like to put just the initials up, PMF. It involved an accidental shooting of a guy by the name of Boyd, or his name is actually Guy Boyd, by Kyle Thum, who was at the time 17 years old. Now, he bought this kit offline called Polymer 80 kits. They were quite common, especially before ATF decided that they needed to regulate them and call them firearms. But they did not know that he wasn't 18 because he has said, yep, I'm 18. There's a place on their website said, yep, I can verify I'm 18 years of age. But you know what? That don't matter. Every town hates guns. They hate the Second Amendment. They hate freedom. And so they're going after this company. They're asking for a lot of damages, too, the way it sounds. And they claim that the company is liable because it didn't take a single step to verify Thum's age on whether he could lawfully own a pistol. In that same case, if you go read the actual complaint within it, they admit that the website required the buyer to certify their age. So, and that's why if you go to any site right now, whether it's NRA or any of these other online companies, they're asking and they say, do you verify you're 18 years of older or even 21? If you don't verify yes, they don't let you into the site. That's what that's all about, everybody, if you've noticed that showing up, even though it's not a law. So basically, every town, they're going to sue JSD Supply. They're claiming that they falsely advertised that a privately manufactured firearm made from a kit requires licensing or paperwork, which it does not. ATF didn't call it a gun at the time. You can do it. This isn't new to anybody. You've been able to build a privately manufactured firearm since the beginning of the country, and it's never been required that you have to go through anything to get that. So a lot of their claims are completely false. Corey, you got anything you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, going on that, they're saying it was a gun, and it wasn't. It was actually parts to a gun. So it wasn't a complete firearm that this kid bought. It was parts to it. It was like the grip and part of the lower receiver and stuff. And since this claim came out, JSD actually took them kits off the market. They were pressured enough where they actually took that off their website. But I mean, it's every gun is going, and they're just throwing everything against the wall, hoping something sticks, and they're trying to bankrupt all these manufacturing companies. Is what basically it comes down to.
Yeah, they're trying to pull the same stuff that they did to tobacco companies. A lot of these. On the flip side of that, it's a lot of the same lawyers that represent these actual organizations. They can't win legally. They can't win in court, especially with the Bruin case. So they're going to try to bankrupt the company, make it almost impossible to do business. It's a de facto gun confiscation, or even basically taking your gun rights away, where you won't be able to buy them even. And let's remember, when you buy an 80%er, that has to be milled out and has to be completed, the other 20%. That isn't done actually easily. You're going to have some tools that make that possible. You're going to have the knowledge. And yes, you can get on YouTube, although YouTube removed most of them. You can still go over to Rumble, find those videos. I've watched a lot of them myself. But it's not as easy as you think. You're not just going to go order an 80%er or buy an 80%er complete and make a gun. You have to get other kits. You might have to buy barrels, springs, screws. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that go into this, and that's why this case is completely bull, because it has no merit. And let's not forget, the United States Circuit Court of Appeals sided with companies like JDS Supply recently, and the Supreme Court stayed that court decision until it can decide to actually hear the case before themselves. So we'll see how that goes. But even if the Supreme Court decides that the feds are correct, which I doubt they will, with the Bruin case on record now, the kits, they're basically legal to sell, and they were not considered firearms. And that's what this comes down to. They're just trying to put these guys out of business. They cite all kinds of misleading statements, including that gun violence, which guns can't commit violence, is a leading cause of death for children. They cherry pick that, and it's just insane.
Well, if you throw the gun 842 K-Fire, it's Guns in the 701. Clay and Corey in this week. And your North Dakota state legislators before too long will be hard at work. God, can I say that with a straight face? It's tough. It's tough, but I think I made it. So start now if you want to see something change.
That's kind of what I was thinking when I thought I'd bring this stuff up. And it has to do with our concealed carry laws. And, of course, we have constitutional carry. But a lot of bills start even in November or December, when you start preparing for those and then finding your sponsors so that they are ready by the January date when they come into session. So the big thing I want to kind of point out is that we do have constitutional carry, and I'm not going to get real technical here because it's boring. If you read the North Dakota Century Code, better have some coffee or some caffeine. It'll put you to sleep. But you got 62.1-4 is pretty much where most of your concealed carry firearm laws are all taking place, actually anything under, quote, dangerous weapons. And we did pass that here. Last session, we had constitutional carry, thanks to Governor Burgum. He signed it. And essentially it gave everybody in the state of North Dakota that's a resident the right. It restored their right to carry without a permit. Now, unlike the one in South Dakota, which I like the South Dakota version better, and I was instrumental in helping write that at the time, but unfortunately I retired before we saw it passed. But we did get it passed, and then eventually Christy Noem signed it. It emulates Wyoming's, which is a better version, where anybody who can carry a firearm in the state of South Dakota, resident or non-resident, may carry without a permit. So that's kind of what I'm going at. If you want to see them changes take place, we just need to strike one little thing in the actual concealed carry firearms of dangerous weapons part of this, under where the licensing and that kind of stuff takes place, and get on your legislature and your legislators and push for this and say, hey, let's restore that right to anybody. We do have reciprocity right now in the state of North Dakota, but not a non-resident may not carry in the state of North Dakota without a permit. And that's just wrong. I think you ought to be able, if you can carry in your state, you should be able to carry here as well. A lot of states have it. They've had no problems, and it's not the Wild West like everybody thinks. I mean, South Dakota has the rally, and we have people from all over the country that go down there. So I don't see why we couldn't have the same thing here. Corey, you got anything you want to add to that?
No, you pretty much summed it up. But yeah, like South Dakota, we know non-residents and residents can open carry. So I mean, it's just it's one of our rights as being lawful gun owners. Myself, we do have open carry, and you don't have to have a permit, say, or whatever. But I myself like to have that
as well.
Right.
Yep.
I like to have that hard copy of a card just in case something would happen. I can physically show it, but that's just me. I like proof of that I'm lawful,
Right. Yeah, and the nice thing about having a permit, like I said, I don't think it should be required, but then you got to go to the other states, the ones that are not, the other 31 states that don't allow you to constitutionally carry now in the United States. And there is reciprocity with several of those. So the nice thing about having your concealed carry permit, whether in North and South Dakota or even Wyoming offers one, and that's mostly so you can go to them other states where they do require that you have a reciprocity and a concealed carry permit. And that kind of leads to another thing with North Dakota, and this kind of came up with a discussion about the North Dakota state GOP convention coming up. They were going to do some searches. They weren't going to allow you to carry. I mean, we're the party of freedom, right? Well, we have a public gathering law that's within this specific century code that does not allow you to actually carry a firearm at a public gathering, and it's insane to me. And, of course, they do have the schools put in there, school-sponsored events and churches, other places of worship, publicly owned, operated buildings. They do have exemptions, and the school thing was overturned, and we have now the right school districts can actually go ahead. It's kind of a process, go to the DPI, get permission to do it. Unfortunately, they have to seek permission from there and then implement it. But the problem is you go like what's happening in, say, Fargo or Bismarck, either of them, if you hold something at a, quote, public building and it's a public gathering, you can't carry. And I think that we need to change that part of our century code so that you do not have to subject yourself to that and lose your rights just because you go to a public gathering. You're already a lawfully legal owner of a firearm. And that should have no bearing then, or that should have all the bearing then to say I can go to a public gathering and rightfully have my rights to protect myself. It should be up to the person or organization putting that on, not an over-blanketing state law as we're seeing right now. So I got issues with that. I don't know, Todd or Corey, want to chime in on that at all?
Yeah.
I'm just letting you guys stay out of your guys' way. You guys have a handle on all this stuff. Guns in the 701, Corey and Clay, and thank God for President Biden.
Oh my goodness.
First meaningful gun legislation in 36 years. What, is he making the entire state open carry? That would be meaningful, right?
Yeah. I know you know this one, Corey. Go for it.
Well, so I was goofing around on Google, and I know how everybody loves Google because, everything is truthful and all that stuff on that. But I just typed in, what has Biden done good for our country? And it came up to a website that is a government website. And it is funny what they list as top accomplishments for our president. I mean, and some of it, I don't get into a lot of politics or whatever, but I follow it just enough to know our country is going down the wrong path, and it is crazy what comes up for his accomplishment.
By the way, in case you missed the press conference, I got a little part of it here.
I will go door to door if I have to, but I'm going to convince Americans that I'm right, and I'm going to get the guns.
So there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a movie. In case anybody's thinking, what? When did that happen?
That's a movie clip, but Biden has kind of said that, and I mean, we've seen Feinstein before she passed and was still in the Senate saying, "Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them in," and she really said it. So don't think for a minute that these Democrat politicians don't want them all.
Right. And I'll put up that website that it actually gave me a list of what he's supposedly done for our country or whatever, and it's www.whitehouse.gov, and then it lists all his so-called accomplishments that he's been there.
Is that the shortest website out there on the internet, or?
Yeah, well, it's got a lot of stuff on it, and you'd be surprised.
Todd, they probably had to dumb it down so Biden could find it himself.
It'll actually reduce speech or text to speech and read it for you, so you don't have to try to read it, right?
Yeah, I don't know if he'd be able to search this website and actually find anything, because I mean it's kind of interesting.
Do you remember the name of the act that they're touting as such a great thing, Corey?
I think it's the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. Is what? Yeah,
and one of the things in there, I think. What did you see in there? There's one thing that jumped out to me, but did you see a big thing in there that actually kind of affects our young adults?
Well, yeah, it's in that act or whatever. It's young people's 18 to 21 undergo enhanced background checks. You know, I mean, we can sign up for the military and get trained on multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment, and then as soon as you get out of the military and you're not 21, you can't go buy a simple rifle or pistol. I mean, it's just...
Well, then just bring one home then when you...
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, before anybody thinks I'm trying to get people to break those kind of laws, I'm not. That's called satire. Check the definition.
Yeah, I don't know if young people and... if millennials actually know what sarcasm is anymore.
Good point. Good point.
You know, the biggest part about the Bipartisan Unsafe Community Act that bothered me the most is they created the Office of Gun Violence, and that's problematic. They even hired an overseer for it within the White House, and then they got a big pool of money within this act, and unfortunately a lot of Republicans voted for it and passed it, and it's going to allow states, cities, whatever. So we got to watch our own states, our own counties. They're going to, hey, if you take this money, essentially what it's going to do, they're changing the name of it. It's called an Extreme Risk Protection Order. It's a red flag law, guys. What's going to happen is if somebody calls in and says, hey, I think Corey's a threat to himself or he's a threat to others, and if they took that money and implemented it, luckily in North and South Dakota they can't at the moment, but if they did it, guess what? Then they're going to come take your guns, and you have to prove that you're not a risk and that you're not guilty, and that's violation of due process right off the bat. So be careful. There's a lot of things in that particular act that fund a lot of bad things when it comes to the Second Amendment. So they're out there on their website saying it's the first meaningful gun violence reduction legislation in 30 days. No, it's just another step to confiscation. 30 years, sorry. It's just another step to confiscation.
Office of Gun Violence in Washington, D.C. It's not self-explanatory what they're teaching there.
Yeah, no kidding, no kidding. But
just saying.
You can reach us, guys, and you can see us every Wednesday night at 6 o'clock Mountain, 7 o'clock Central. We'll be on gunsinthe701.com, all of our social media platforms. And by the way, Jamie has something coming up tonight as well. Drinks with the 701. You're gonna want to be there and check that out. Taking North Dakota brews, testing them out with a group of guys, and going to kind of talk about them. So you don't want to miss that. That'll be on all of our platforms. It'll be everywhere at 7 o'clock Central Time. Drinks with the 701, and JD and a bunch of great guys are going to do that for you tonight. And of course, you can't miss us on Mitchell in the Morning every Friday. 7:15 Mountain, 8:15 Central, and the best podcast on iHeart you're going to find.
There you go. That's the important part. We got to nail that part right there. Guns in the
Did I get it all
701. Well, Corey, good to talk to you. Clay,
Yeah.
I always talk
I'd
to
like
you, so it's no big deal. But
Right. One of these days I'll come up and actually meet you. But I'd like to add on, the wind is starting to pick up, and most of central South Dakota is in red flag warnings also. It is extremely dry out there, and be safe.
okay. Yeah. Red flag warning 1 to 8 central. So, careful, everybody. All right, guys. Have a good weekend.
You too.
You too.
All righty. Take care. 8:55.